what up, Long Beach? Welcome back to yet another episode of Long Beach Sports Talk, hitting everything in the local scene as we always do. It is presented by the Gazette newspapers and the Press Telegram. It is sponsored by Naples Rib Company, and it features three guys who are pretty thankful sports writers right now. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I am sports editor JJ Fiddler. To my right,
Mike Gartabasio, also the sports editor, and to my right,
Tyler Hendrickson, gripping wood grain in the turning lane. Not a sports editor, but I contribute things.
Listen, we do honestly and send out a heartfelt happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I don't speak for the other two guys, but it is by far my favorite holiday. It's about family, it's about food, it's about football. What more do you want? But let's swing it around the horn.
All of the things you believe in.
Exactly. Swing it around the horn and say what we're thankful for. I'm thankful for this job, first of all, so I don't think we all need to say that, but you know, we do live a pretty cool existence, and with this Press Telegram thing now wrapped into it, we've gotten other teams like Norwalk and Los Al that we get to enjoy. So that's been really cool this season.
You're thankful for Norwalk? I respect that. I think we can all admit that we're thankful for Norwalk. I have to mention that I'm thankful for my family and the fact that my wife is home from work right now, so the sports baby will not be making an appearance today.
But shout out to the sports baby.
Absolutely. I'm thankful that Michael Crabtree's Achilles tendon has recovered enough that the 49ers may once again become a competitive and competent offensive football team in the next week or two. Tyler?
That's a pretty good one. I want to mention a couple. I'm thankful for Sirius XM satellite radio for making my car rides and being stuck in traffic much better.
No doubt.
Hashtag 90s on 9. I want to also thank the iCloud for saving all of the things in my iPhone because that definitely ended up making that experience not so bad. And I also want to say I'm very thankful for the Tennessee Volunteers football team for winning the one they needed to win when I was there. They can lose all the other ones,
and they have.
when I'm there, and they have.
You're not thankful to the San Diego Chargers for knocking out the Chiefs for you?
Yeah, you're welcome.
Not yet. Not yet.
Actually, that brings me back to me because I'm thankful for all the blue in my life, dude. Great Dodgers season. The Chargers getting some big wins this year. And how about them Everton Toughies? The grandest old team to support. So it's been a pretty good sports year so far. We are obviously expecting a lot more to come this calendar sports year, as we call it. But we are getting ready for a big sports weekend. We have got semifinals and championships and playoffs still. I feel like we started talking about the playoffs like a month ago, and we're still talking about them. But isn't that the way you want it to be? Don't you want the teams to be playing as long as possible? Well, we get that. We've got football, we've got volleyball, we've even got some local basketball. So we've got a huge show of Long Beach Sports Talk coming at you right now. If you're looking for a high school football rivalry, look no further than Veterans Memorial Stadium Friday night. It's going to be cold, it's going to be physical, it's going to be classic. Green v. Red, Poly, Mater Dei. Again! How excited were we for the championship game? And now we get a semifinal a year later that may be thicker storyline-wise because these two teams almost have reconverged after a time in the 90s, a time in the early 2000s, and now they can't get out of each other's way.
Well, what better way to start the Christmas season the day after Thanksgiving?
Love it.
Than with green and red on the field, right? It's pretty wonderful. This will be the 10th time these two teams have played in the playoffs, with Poly currently owning a 5-4-1 advantage in those games. Poly scored 212 points to Mater Dei's 202, and they've played in 4 CIF Division I championship games. So you're right. You really couldn't ask for a better rivalry in high school sports. I have a feature that's out in the Gazette and the Press Telegram right now. You can read and get boned up a little bit on that history so you can talk smack in the stands if that's your thing. But obviously, one coach who did not need to read that feature was Poly coach Raul Lara, who's been here for a lot of that history.
When I look at Mater Dei, I look at back in the 90s, and especially in the early 90s when we were struggling. They were winning national championships. They just weren't winning CIF championships. They were winning national championships. I think Rollinson ended up winning 2 of them. And then that big game in 1997 when we played them in the Coliseum when they were the number 1 team in the country and we upset them. That was probably one of my joyous game that I ever experienced throughout my career because it was just so memorable, and that win for us and Poly kind of just elevated the program. And then, obviously the next year we're number one. They kind of defeated us, and then we go again, and then we have the rubber match, and we're 0-0 tie. So it just, there's a lot of history in the sense of them 90 games. And so now we carried it over to the 2000. And then in 2000, I believe, 2, they beat us in the semifinals. I think we played them again. I can't remember what year when we played them in the first round, and then they knocked us off. And then we got them last year. Now here we go again. So it's a back and forth battle with them. And then obviously, Bruce Rollinson has been there forever. I've been here for a while. And we, the coaching staff know each other very well. Every time we go to CIF office to find out the brackets and everything, we're always at Hoff Hut, and we're kind of talking, and we know each other. And so it's a great rivalry for us, and again, it's a great matchup, and it's a challenge for coaches because we're going against good coaches.
I think these teams are going to turn Black Friday into Smack Friday because they have got some pretty good defenses, and especially Poly, just a fantastic unit, one of the best that we've seen at any point throughout, watching football in the Southern California area. And I think that's going to define the game, especially if it's raining. It's going to be a defensive slugfest.
Could we call it Crackback Friday or Black and Blue Friday?
I mean, whatever suits your needs.
Black and Blue Friday, tackles at half price.
But you have to get there at 6 a.m.
These are the two best defenses in the Pac-5 in terms of points allowed this year. So, if that's the style of football you like, obviously this is going to be a great game. Poly's defense right now has got their coaches talking about this up there with some of the greatest teams to ever come through Poly defensively. Obviously, their performance in the Moore League was phenomenal, but their performance in the playoffs has been just as impressive. I mean, the starters have given up 2 scores to Orange Lutheran, 0 scores to St. Bonaventure, and that's pretty good because those are a pair of really good offenses who are good in completely different ways. And that's what I think they've shown is between their front and how great their defensive backfield is, it's a very complete defense that's physical at every position. And head coach Raul Lara said after the game against St. Bonnie, he thinks it might be the most physical defense he's ever coached. And you consider that he's had 12 NFL defensive players come through Poly since he's been the head coach. That's saying something.
Well, and I think it's interesting to look, where is the strength of this defense? You look at the units, and usually you can say, well, obviously they're led by this. But this Poly defense, they seem so balanced. I guess you'd say their secondary is the top unit because they have a couple of all-American level guys, but it's really difficult to break down and say what's the strength, what's the biggest weakness, because they're just stout everywhere. Yeah, maybe depth is the only thing you'd be concerned with?
Certainly, obviously, depth always a concern for high school football teams, but this team is pretty, they've got an extra couple guys at every position.
It's not a college defense, it's still high school defense, but it's just pretty dang good.
Well, Mike, you mentioned the modern day defense, too, and like you said, the top 2 defenses as it comes to points allowed. I got to see that modern day defense up and close and personal when they went to Bosco, and without the help of an offense, the offense literally got shut out that night. We talked about the Bosco defense a lot too, but without that any help, that modern day defense held that team to under 30 points. Not something a lot of teams have been able to do this season against that Bosco Braves defense. You've got Jonathan Lockett in the secondary. He's got like 20 solo tackles and 6 pass deflections, bigger and better than he was last year. You've got the junior on the line, Malik McMorris, and they do show you a lot of things. McMorris can get into the backfield. He leads the teams in sacks and tackles for loss, but he can also drop back into coverage.
You like McMorris
I really do like McMorris. And he's just a good example of how that defense, like I just said, does a lot of things because he is such a versatile player that they can move him around. He can play on the inside, he can play on the outside, he can drop back into coverage. So I'm putting the over, we did the over and under for passes in the Norwalk Dominguez game. I'm doing over under touchdowns.
Total touchdowns?
Yeah, total touchdowns. And why not lay it at like a 3 or a 3.5?
If you said 3.5, I'd probably take the under.
Yeah, because I don't see anybody scoring 27 points in this game. I just don't see it.
Maybe if there were some defensive touchdowns or something, but you do kind of feel like it's
special teams. So maybe special teams.
Total touchdowns scored by the offense is at 3.5. That's
when was the last time we saw a semifinal game where special teams didn't factor in? You know what I mean? So special teams is going to be a factor.
It has yet to happen.
It is big time, and especially if the conditions are going to be cold and rainy, which is what my iPhone app is telling me, is that there's going to be water droplets coming down on Friday. So we'll see how that affects the game. But I think it's interesting. These teams just played less than a year ago, so they're going to be fairly familiar with how the teams look in the rain, in the second half specifically. So they'll be able to look at that film and how big of an adjustment are these teams going to make, especially Mater Dei. The onus is on them to make changes because Poly gave them the business in that title game.
Indeed they did, but no matter what the weather's like, no matter what the coaching is, sometimes it just comes down to the best player on the field. His name is John Juju Smith. We've been talking about him all season, as has all of Southern California. And as Laura said after practice the other day, it's time to get that kid the ball.
I always told everybody he may be the best player around in the West Coast. You know, he's a special player. But the reason you didn't hear too much about Juju in the Moore League is because obviously we didn't really need him at that time. So we were trying to preserve him and also trying to get the younger guys involved. So just in case depth-wise, we would be ready in the playoffs just in case somebody, unfortunately got hurt or something like that. It's playoffs time. It's, do or die. And now Juju needs to touch the ball. Your best athletes have to touch the ball because they do some wonderful things. And not only Juju, but Marshall too. Marshall's getting some touches. And so we're coming in a game thinking, okay, how can we get Juju at least between 10 and 15 touches? And if we do that, then we feel like we're doing our job. If we go back and look at the film and we didn't do that, then we didn't do a very good job of getting him the ball.
We know, obviously, we've already mentioned it's going to be cold, it's going to be rainy. That makes me almost not want to mention that the game's also going to be on television because we'd really much rather have a great atmosphere for our highlight video and for this game, of course. So don't do that thing where you're sitting around with your family and you just feel like staying in on Friday night.
Shake that tryptophan off.
Yeah, out here
get in the car, bundle up, bring some hot cocoa.
Come say hi to us at the Poly. JJ and I are both going to be there, so you know it's a big game because have we covered a game together this year?
Not this year, no.
So very excited for that, and hopefully we'll see you out there because it should be a great one.
And if Poly can get by Mater Dei, they would likely face their third Trinity League team of the playoffs, their fourth different Trinity League team of the season, the St. John Bosco Braves, who are undefeated, the number one seed in the Pac-5, and it has not been close so far. They have been tearing teams down, got rid of Tesoro quick, fast, in a hurry, 35 points in the first quarter, and they are just rolling through the competition. They'll go to Alemany. That's their first time on the road. Alemany getting by Lakewood and then Servite. And obviously the Braves are going to be heavy favorites, and you expected this. We expected them to be heavy favorites all the way up until the championship game because nothing has slowed them down.
Have they not been heavy favorites all season? You know what I mean? They have been tabbed as the team to watch in Southern California all year long, and they've beaten teams from out of state like Chandler. You know, they've taken care of business in the Trinity League, which for our money is probably the best league top to bottom in Southern California, and they've done it with a fantastic offensive game plan. They spread you out. They've got a really good quarterback in Josh Rosen. But really, and we keep talking about it, and I don't think we can talk about it enough, the improvement of that defensive unit from last year to this year is just, it's unreal.
They're just a stop unit. You just don't move the ball. You know, you just really don't see them let the other team pick up first downs, get a rhythm. It's every time they start on defense, it's a 3 and out. At least at the games that I've been at, I've noticed like that they kick off. It's usually a touchback, and then they just go out there, and then they just go out and shut you down for 3 plays. And then usually the offense scores first. I mean, that's kind of the recipe. You saw them go away from that a little bit when they played Mater Dei.
Yeah.
It was a little bit more of a mix-up. They had turnovers, but they still took care of business. And like you said, the defense did not allow the Monarchs to score at all or do much of anything. They didn't get fooled by the trick plays. They didn't get fooled on special teams when they tried the fake punt early. They're disciplined. They're talented. They're stout. And they've been consistent all year. And then you look at the offense that's just loaded with D1 talent, and you saw their explosiveness. They needed 10 plays to get 5 touchdowns against Tesoro. 3.5 points per play. What is that?
Unbelievable, that game against Tesoro. I was more confused at Tesoro than I was at Bosco. We've seen Bosco put up big numbers. Obviously, something like that in the quarterfinal game of a Pac-10 playoff is unreal.
Pac-5, it only feels like the Pac-10.
Excuse me. That was a Freudian slip right there. But Tesoro was so confusing because I saw them play against Cabrillo, and they looked good. They didn't look great, but they looked like they could, move the ball a little bit. Maybe they could get a couple stops or whatever. I thought that game was going to be like 21-7, something like that at halftime, and then Bosco's going to blow the doors off in the first. They didn't even wait till the break to blow the doors off.
They didn't even wait till the end of the first quarter. And they weren't reinventing the wheel. I mean, give Bosco their credit, obviously, but very simple vanilla play calling.
Yeah.
You know, handoffs up the middle and bubble screens. It was effective. Why do what you don't have to do? But at the end of the day, very simple game plan.
Do you think that
to
gets
perfection.
them more prepared for this Alemany game, or do you think Alemany comes in with a little bit of an edge because they've played closer games in the playoffs?
You know, I don't think that Alemany has enough to make that matter. I mean, I understand the question.
It is going to be a tough place to play, too. Alemany High
doubt.
School classically has a very, very good home field advantage.
No doubt. And Alemany needs a great start. They need to get off to a good start. They need the crowd to stay in it. But you just haven't really seen Bosco be rattled on the road. And even if they do have a sloppy start, they did not start well against Chandler. They fell behind by 18. They did not start well against Mater Dei. Didn't get in a hole for it because the Monarchs couldn't score. But they've been able to bounce back, and they're just so explosive. They turn the game in a matter of 5 or 6 plays.
Yeah, we talked about Rosen. We talked about Wadude. We've mentioned a couple guys on the defense. Wadude there as well. Give me one guy, or give these fans one guy to watch for that maybe they haven't been reading about or seeing this season.
Sean McGrew. I mean, he's taken the job as the starting running back and, averaging 8 or 9 yards a carry. I think what's more important for McGrew is to make sure that, Alemany is respecting the run game, gashing them, allowing Bosco when they need to ball control, they can, but just not fumbling the ball.
Yeah.
Just don't drop the ball.
Yeah.
And he's been great all year. He had the fumble against Mater Dei, but he's been doing a great job. And so I thought
you
out
were
a bunch
gonna
of guys, but McGrew makes sense to me.
I thought you were going to say, like, Ivan the Terrible or T.O.T. Mariner or Dorton or somebody like that.
Just too many guys that can step up on that defense. It's
Yeah.
hard to pick.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick one guy.
I'd say Dorton. I mean, obviously everybody knows about him, but I think he's been relatively quiet. And his game against Pauley in the semifinal last year was when I was like, oh, so he is really real.
But JJ, we look at playoff runs. Most of the time, you say like, oh, you need your big guys to step up in these big games. Well, Bosco hasn't played a real playoff game yet.
Yep.
They haven't been in crunch time. They haven't even been in crunch time all season, you would say. Orange Lutheran was close, but that didn't come down to the end of the fourth quarter.
No.
And they've tried. They have had a tough schedule. They've just beaten everyone. So we don't know who's going to step up in crunch time.
It's true.
And we haven't seen it.
And neither of us think it's going to happen this week.
Not particularly, no. And that's really difficult to expect a team to kind of cruise the whole year and then presumably get to a championship game. We're only saying this because they are the favorites. Presumably get to a championship game, and then you might need to come through in crunch time at a neutral site with all the pressure, biggest crowd you've been in front of all year. That's a big ask. Can they pull it off? We'll see. Don't want to overlook Alemany, but obviously these Braves look really, really good.
Well, speaking of teams that have steamrolled through their season schedule, how about them Norwalk Lancers? Our third and final semifinal that we're covering this weekend. It is going to be at Muir High School. Yeah. As the Norwalk Lancers coming off their huge win over Dominguez at La Mirada last Friday. I got a chance to cover that game, and it was fascinating. Just imagine it being like an old man playing chess against himself in a park.
Oh my.
Because he plays the same way, but he's like trying to outsmart his own scheme. Mm-hmm. That's what Norwalk Dominguez was like. And when I was filming it, usually when we're filming high school football, you miss a lot because you're looking into the screen, so you're not able to see everything. But because these two teams condense everything,
sure.
By the third quarter, I was noticing trends. I was noticing, if this block gets down, well, he's obviously going to gain like 5 to 6 yards. Or if that block doesn't get down, then he's going to get, you know what I mean? It was fascinating for me to cover that game. I had a great time, and then obviously Rashad Penny. I said it in my lead. Sometimes it just comes back down to the best player on the field. We just talked about it with Juju. Rashad Penny was by far the best player on that field. And he might be again on Friday night at Muir.
He's just that dude, JJ. He really is. And we've been talking about him a lot this season, but rightfully so. I mean, he is racking up the touchdowns, and he's just been clutch. When they've needed him for game-winning scores, he hasn't always been the guy that punched it in. Jacob Carr had the winning touchdown toward the end of the season. I believe that was the
La Mirada game. Yeah.
Yes. And so, he hasn't always been the guy to punch it in, but he has been the guy that's gotten him there. He's their best receiver. He's their best obviously their best running back as far as, putting up the stats. One of their best defenders.
Over 2,000 yards rushing this year is not a lie. It's not a smokescreen.
And it's fascinating to watch, and for your senior season to have those type of heroics, it's been great, and you just got to finish it off with a championship. That's all that's left for him and for this team right now. They're undefeated, and they're on a bit of a roll. They've had some tough tests the past month, so they've had to win some close games, unlike Bosco, which we talked about. Will that catch up with them? They're a little bit banged up. They've had to claw and fight, but can they refocus? And it's just all about, this star. How far can Rashad Penny carry this team?
Well, it could be all the way. We stopped by practice the other day and talked to head coach Jesse Sinaceros about Rashad Penny, and I noticed during the game that they really didn't celebrate after the touchdowns, and he kind of said, well, yeah, we've seen it before.
But again, it's gotten to the point where I'm not surprised by what he's doing out there. I think he's become a regular on that Rogan's Heroes on Channel 4 Sunday nights. And again, just having a kid like him just makes my job a lot easier. It makes me look like a really, really good coach, which, don't get me wrong, we put in our work. But, having an athlete like that just, makes our team that much more better. I think the kids respect him because, again, he's not that type of kid that's me, I, look at me, I have 100 wristbands on my arms. And, again, but he's been in the system. Man. He's been with us since he was a little kid. He was our ball boy on the sidelines, when his brother Robert played. His brother Elijah played for me. So he knows the system. He knows what we expect. He knows Coach C I hate that stuff. the individual stuff. And, again, he just, he's become a leader because the kids respect him for that.
Yeah, the Lancers, the quintessential team, not a me-first type of bunch that really have come together as a unit. They're going to take on a Muir team that's very different from Dominguez, so they're going to have to completely rework their defensive game plan and try to stop a talented squad that can do a little bit more offensively and spread you out quite a bit. And it starts with their quarterback, JJ.
Yeah, the number one guy to watch, number one, Dejon Williams, he's basically their offense. I mean, it's that type of offensive set where they spread you out and they try to let Williams run wild. In one 5-game stretch this season, he completed 67% of his passes for almost 1,000 yards, and he also led the team in rushing, averaging over 10 yards a carry. He is that dude for the Muir team, as is Rashad Penny for this Lancers team. So I think it's going to be a great game. I've never been to Muir High School, but from what everybody says, it's a scene out there, very close confines as it pertains to the stands and the field. But if those Lancers weren't afraid of the Dominguez Dons, they're not going to be afraid to go to Muir. And with the championship on the line, you put those blinders on and you just charge forward. That should be a great game. We are going to have coverage, full coverage of all of those games. It is at Muir at 7 o'clock. It is at Vets at 7:30, and it is at Alemany at 7:30. So come back to the sites for all of that coverage.
I have actually come up with an idea of how we can really work Vincent into the show. Is what if we did every week a Vincent reenactment of the most talked about play from the previous week?
It's kind of tight.
It's kind of dope, right? Because people were
like
really yeah, exactly. Now I know that obviously I'm his father, so I'm biased, but people really responded to the Vincent reenactment segment. I got a lot of texts. I'm just throwing it out there, particularly during basketball.
And I can
season.
stay on my supporting actor tip.
Yeah, because
that's
I feel
what I do.
Basketball season it would be big time.
Yeah, that's what I do. You just dunk on me, yeah. Or alley oop, because Marquette's gonna drop some this year, dude.
No.
Yeah. So is Sweeney. Oh
see,
my, yeah. 30 and then 25, I think, in the next game against Moscow.
And apparently that Kendall Smart kid who's there is
Mayfair's
really
real.
annoying for Mayfair.
Mayfair's real.
Quite legit.
Truest. Yeah. Let's see what's up.
We enjoy the full variety of sport here at the Press Telegram and the Gazette newspapers. We get it all, and I still, to this day, no doubt in my mind, my favorite part of this job is standing in front of a group of high school athletes who are holding a championship plaque for the first time. That's just, it's the best. I would be willing to pay you to be at that scene for teams that we cover all season long. You see them go through the trials and tribulations, everything that every team has to go through, and at the end of the day, there they are, gripping and grinning. Love it.
It's pure joy, and it's fantastic. And we had a team win a CIF championship, and you and I were there, JJ, the Los Alamitos Griffins, winning the Division I AA Girls Volleyball Championship over Mater Dei last weekend at Santiago Canyon College, and it was a fantastic match and a well-deserved championship. This team had the feel of a champion all regular season, and then in the playoffs they really turned it on. Saw it against Olu in a close sweep, and they just had it against Mater Dei. They just had it. They had what you need.
Yeah, they really did. The game was so interesting because the first set was so close that you anticipated it to be close like that, but it wasn't close as in back and forth they went, no one's separated by too many points. Los Al took big leads in the first, second, third, and fourth set. Mm-hmm. And then Mater Dei just kept coming back. And that's what made it so exciting, was no lead for these Griffins was safe. And they just kept having to push Mater Dei back and back and back. And they did it one final time in that fourth set. What were they up, like 2015 or something like that in that final set?
They were up big time, yeah. I think they were up 7 like late in the set. I think it was 22-15 or
so
something.
credit to Mater Dei, but even more credit to Los Al for not giving up one of those sets and finally, one of those sets after the second, and finally holding that plaque up. It is their second CIF championship in 3 years.
Sure.
But they did not win the state championship 2 years ago. So it's very interesting that now with this team that maybe had a tougher time winning that CIF title than the team did back in 2011, they swept their way. They didn't drop a set in that playoffs.
Dominant. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now this team has the chance to go and do what that team couldn't do. And the way it looked on Tuesday night there against Granada Hills, it could very easily come down to another Mater Dei Los Al matchup to decide who's representing Southern California in the state championships.
Well, those are the top 2 seeds. Los Al number 1 overall, obviously, and Mater Dei right behind them, number 2. The good thing for Los Al, they would host all the way through this tournament until the championship. So they would play Mater Dei in their home gym, and it's obviously a scene in there every time that they play.
God, that student section, can we just shout them out one more time? Because we've seen a lot of good fan bases. We have not seen a student section turn out for the playoffs and the postseason like this Los Al student section has. They are organized, they are loud,
committed.
They are relentless, and yes, committed. I was going to say the same thing. They wore all blue one night, and then 3 nights later they're wearing all red. Like, no big deal.
And they've been notorious for being on the all white. You know, we're coming out and doing the whiteout. So, I mean, very organized, very loud, knowledgeable, into the game. I mean, they do their homework and they turn out, and they deserve, one huge collective ring for that whole student section.
Somebody needs to make one.
If they make a shirt for this team, you know how when they have championships, they put the shirt, they put the roster on the back.
Yeah.
Just add one for the student section.
Amen.
They should all feel like part of this championship because they were there for the whole time and really carrying them.
Yeah.
And it's a strong group of seniors that feeds off that, plays emotionally, and I think there is unfinished business, and senior captain Chrissy Jones talked about that. She won a title as a sophomore at Los Al, then had the heartbreak of her junior year losing to Poly early in the playoffs, but then now they've got this unfinished business, and I think they're focused, and they have the right mentality to finish off the state championship run. Let's see if they can keep it going. Probably have to get by Mater Dei again. They start with playing a hilariously similar opponent, at least on the name sheet.
Saturday night, 7 o'clock. Seventh man will be there. You should be too. It's Los Al versus LaSalle.
Say that one more time. It's hilarious.
Los Al will host LaSalle. LaSalle, everyone's upset pick, obviously. But Los Al LaSalle is the matchup on Saturday night at LaSalle Gym, where LaSalle will try to knock off LaSalle.
Can we get a joint chant going where one half of the gym or 3/4 of the gym says "We are Los Al" and then the other quarter says "We are LaSalle"?
Yes.
Just at the same time, "We are Los Al."
We need to just start the chant at the same time, so the whole stadium is cheering, but half of them is cheering for one team and the other half is cheering for the other team.
So
no one will know the difference.
So confusing, so much fun. But anyway, yeah, that team's been phenomenal to watch, and they've got a few more matches to win before they can put state and win their last match. No matter what happens from here on out, they're champions, well-deserved, but you always like to end your season on a victory, and to end it with a state championship would be awesome for the Griffins.
All that coverage for Los Al, right here. That's it, that's all. There ain't no more. Another episode of Long Beach Sports Talk in the books. We will definitely see you in the stands this weekend. We've actually got Long Beach State women's basketball on Saturday as well. And then that night on Saturday, we're going to be at Los Alamitos, where they're taking on LaSalle, like we said. And then Friday, obviously, 3 huge semifinal football games, and you're going to find all of the coverage right here. For everybody involved with the Press Telegram and the Gazette newspapers, for Mike, for Tyler, for JJ, for everybody else who helps with this show.
JJ, you don't have to say for
Thank you,
yourself.
Long Beach.
Just
thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We'll see you guys this weekend. Take care. That should have been our B-roll, or our outtakes, or whatever. talking about sitcoms. We could do a Grantland podcast.
I mean, not to play the expert card.
I like them, but we could do one.
Not to play the expert card, but I mean, got the authority on sitcoms.
Oh, because you were in 6 episodes of a sitcom,
It was 7. I mean, I haven't seen the sitcom you were on. So show me, and then we'll talk.
All right.
Card carrying.
JJ's done extensive extra work.
It's also true.
Not in sitcoms.
Not in sitcoms, though.
Movies. JJ's too big time for sitcoms.
I was in multiple crowds in sitcoms. I was a member of the laugh track.
As was I.
JJ's too big time for your sitcom work, though.
Yeah, but Scorsese's on TV.
JJ doesn't do television.
No, but I was ahead of the curve. TV's the new film. Scorsese's on TV now. You know what I mean, baby? TV's the new film. That's where it's at. You know, that's definitely where it's at.